Howdy, what's up? Got Patron in my cup. What's up, guys? So we are headed to go meet up with Sid, and do we have a video for y'all? We're gonna do a little bit of a we're gonna ride and chat today. Get these pants from bunching up. Let me get so today's video, we're going to be touching base on a couple things. We have our notes here because I want to make sure I do touch base on it. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about Sena, whatever you pronounce, this thing here on the side of the helmet. This is the 50S. It's still very new. We've had it for approximately about a year and a half. We got it through promo through Hardcore Cycles. We got it as a dual set where it came with two. So if you and a buddy want to split the cost, or if you and your wife want to chat while you're riding, that is the benefit of running with that dual pack. Now, it was interesting because we got them same time, brand new from Hardcore Cycles, and within a couple, like let's say a month or two, my battery charge would not hold a full 100%. It seemed like I would charge it overnight. It would display the red light that it was starting to charge, that it was recharging. But then within about like 2-3 hours of using it, I would get the battery is low. And I'd be like, darn it. And then it'd be like anywhere from 20 to 60%, and it would never get a full charge for some reason. And I said, okay, cool. That was the case for about 6 months, 7 months, and then after that it started to worsen, where pretty much we'd have to bring a charger with us anytime we would ride, turn the Sena on. We would you know, we'd hear that message prompt that it had low battery. It would be anywhere from 20 to 40%. It would die after a couple hours of riding, especially if we did the mesh intercom. It would pretty much kill it within 15 minutes. And then so I just never did mesh, and I would just do your standard Bluetooth intercom. And that was the case. Also, I want to say this quarry is super dope. I really like riding through here. I want to be able to sneak on in there and just kind of do a couple of videos or something here, that we're going to try to figure out who do we need to get in contact with. Just be like, hey, let me go onto the property, take some photos. I ride through Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah, but I digress. So also Isaac had an issue with having to mesh intercom or Bluetooth intercom with ours. He has the 30K, I believe, and Sena told them, hey, you know, the standard troubleshoot, restore your firmware and then press with the paper clip the reset button, and who knows what else, where it was I think we're gonna go left. Yeah, let's go left. Man, it's been a while since we've been out here. This is the old stomping grounds, saying, hey, do a hard reset, basically, which is where you put a paper clip and you do this button on the back of the unit, which is like somewhere back here, and it does like a full reset. And then also their go-to is like download firmware, update firmware. And I get it, but at the same time, it's just kind of annoying to get that response. So I've been putting it off for so long, and then now the problem has gotten so bad where I've charged it pretty much for 2 days, and it's been even less battery than I've ever had, where I thought I had fixed the issue, because I sent Sena a message last night saying, hey, this problem has exacerbated. It's gotten so much worse where I just get annoyed seeing that. Like, as soon as I hear, I'm like, gosh darn it, where I'm at the point where I almost want to just throw it away and then just get anything else, Cardo Pack Talk and who knows what else, or it's extremely frustrating. And but I took the time to send them an email, just hoping that they'd be like, oh, we're so sorry to hear that, this is what we can do. And at the same time, I went ahead and I updated the firmware, and we had some issues with that where it said it was unable to download the first time, like it ran to an issue. So we redid it, we re-downloaded it, and we were able to get the new firmware. We didn't restore the settings just to see if that did it, because that seemed to do the trick. That it was also the USB cable, the Sena cable that came with, that had this weird little dongle looking thing on it. It wouldn't recognize the device on the computer, so we ended up getting a GoPro USB-C connector, plugged it into the Sena, and then all of a sudden it recognized it on the computer. It was able to do the firmware update, and it led me to believe that it would also charge maybe the other USB cable that I was using, something I got from a gas station that I used to charge my GoPros on the run, because it's a longer cable. And after charging it all day yesterday and all night, and even up until now, it's 5 o'clock now, it showed me 4%. 4%. Yesterday it was at 11. I charged it, it got up to like 20, And whenever I turn on the Sena, it shows 100%, shows charging. I unplug it and drops to 99. I'm like, cool. I immediately turn it off and turn it back on, and then it drops to 60. And I do the same thing, it drops to 40. And I'm like, this is not it. So Sena responds to me that even though they said that they normally respond Monday through Friday, they actually got back to me this afternoon, which I was like, oh snap. And it was the exact same thing. Have you tried updating your firmware? I would suggest doing that, restore the default settings, and also do the hard reset. And at that point, I was just kind of like, really, dude? I'm gonna do it just so that way I can say I did it. But at this point, I'm kind of done with the Sena system, because the previous one, the intercom is the most difficult thing to get to pair. That you try to pair, you pair with someone, and then you try to do a quick pair, and it's like, what? And I think that was the 21, I think that was the 20S that we had last time. So I wasn't really too confident going into this one. But this one had a couple surprises where we did some quick connects. It was still troublesome at times trying to pair with other people. The mesh intercom was very nice, but it was also kind of sketchy where it wouldn't always work properly because someone was on channel 2, channel 1, and it wouldn't remember like a previous one. That's the issue that we're having with our Sena. It's pretty annoying. I'm kind of over it. It's a bit of a bummer because the Cardo Pack Talk is pretty, I think it's like $350 or $400 for a Cardo Pack Talk. There is the Lexan FT4 Pro. I'm just not a fan of the aesthetics of the Lexan, and to me personally, I know a lot of the Lexan squad is going to probably jump on this, but it just looks cheap, and I'm not a fan of it. But I will say in their defense that everyone says that the music quality is so much better than what the Sena speakers do, because even at full volume, sometimes the Sena speakers, I have trouble listening to songs or kind of what's going on in the headpiece when it comes to wind noise at highway speeds, exhaust, because we also don't have our two-wheel audio system anymore. Because now that we're back to crushing miles, dude, I loved track, and I was extremely excited to see the setup that we had with the low risers. It was like very track ready. It was what the Street Fighter from Harley probably would have come out looking like, where it was very aggressive paired with the True Mids, which we're going to dive into these here momentarily, and the issues that we're having with them. But we went ahead and got new 10-inch pullback risers, and we have our bar set up back to similar to where we had it with the Lucky Dave's 13-inch pullbacks. But the reason we went with new risers and we didn't go with the old T-bars was, one, because we sold the T-bars to help fund part of the front end build, because there was a whole lot of stuff that was going on that we needed money for. And then two was the fact that we didn't want to have to rewire, like rerun the wires in through the T-bars, take them out of the built well bars, and then that was just a whole lot of work that we didn't really want to do for a quick plug and play style system. And we thought about getting new hand controls and then a new throttle of fly-by-wire for the M8s, so that way we would have essentially the bar and riser combo. For like the lower part, we would just unbolt the risers and take everything, disconnect everything from the neck harness, and then we would put on the T-bars that were already wired, so it was pretty much just like a legit plug and play of two full handlebar setups. But then we went against that. We said, no, let's 86 that. And then what we ended up doing was we just went with new risers, and we still had all the Gorilla Cables extensions from when we did our gauge relocation kit, and then when we got the new T-bars, that makes it extremely easy. So that was a huge benefit of that. And then, man, once we got a couple miles in, we're like, bro, I forgot how this was, because with the old setup for long rides, we were kind of set forward, and after 45 minutes to an hour, our lower back was on fire. Like, oh man, we got to take a break. We'd be at the gas station doing yoga, doing stretches, all kinds of stuff just to relieve the tension in our lower back that we wouldn't really ride. I think we were just riding to Cedar Park, which is about 30 minutes away, and then we kind of do the usual route, call it a day, and come home. That we wouldn't even go to New Braunfels, San Antonio. And then once we got this set up, I was like, dude, let's do it. We put it on, I think on a Friday, and then I worked Saturday, and then on Sunday I was like, you know what, let's go to Dripping Springs. And then once we got to Dripping Springs, which is about an hour south, it's about 30 miles through the hill country, then I said, you know what, let's go to New Braunfels, which is about another 30 miles. And then hot dog, we got to New Braunfels, like, man, I feel like I just started riding. I was so excited. We decided to go to San Antonio, just the outskirts of San Antonio Canyon Lake, and then we came back to San Marcos, back to Dripping Springs. went out through Marble Falls, and then so it was like a 300-mile day that first day back. I was like, yo, we were hooked. And oh god. And then the next weekend we did the exact same route. I think it was 350 miles. That one it definitely felt like a long day, but dude, your boy was back. We were crushing miles. And then I said, oh, hot dog. Shortly after that, we got the idea to swap from the sport bike tires because we added the bags back on, and something about the weight kind of was having me at ease, because for the sport bike tires we were just under the load rating for, I think it was the rear, and then we were over the load rating for the front tire. So for both tires we were just like, you know, pretty right on par. We were like above the danger zone, where like anytime I took a corner with the full back setup, with the cameras, with all the snacks and the drinks that I carry, I was expecting the sidewall to blow out, where I'd just be like mid corner and then air would just let out because the bead would get unseated, whatever that word, correct verbiage is, and then we would just be sliding and then be like, oh, hot dog, we got into a low side. So we decided to go with some adventure style tires, because now that we have the setup, we said we can't afford a Pan America, let's make our own FXLR 1250 GS Pan America Harley Davidson. Yeah, son, hot dog, hot diggity dog. That I love the way the tires look. It's a whole different beast, but we're still running them on the 17-inch Lindell wheels. I did want to go with a slightly knobbier tire like the Anarchy Wild, but we opted for the Anarchy Adventure because they didn't make a front wheel. They didn't make a front tire in the Anarchy Wild in a 17-inch. I think the lowest they went was 18, and I didn't really want to have a slightly adventurous front and then a knobby back. That at first I was a little hesitant because I didn't think it was going to stick on grip, where I'd be turning and I was just really expected to be kind of like wobbly, like mid-turn, and kind of just, that's how it felt. It might have been because they were new, or it was just me either manipulating, where that's what I was telling myself I was feeling and it was transferring to the bike. But I mean, the other day we went out to Marble Falls, we were doing 1431. If you're in Austin, you know that road. The bike did not seem to slip at all, and that really gave me the confidence on those tires. And plus it's fun to be able to kind of go off the beaten path a little bit on the dirt roads like the Caliche, those canyon lands that may be in your area, and it just gives you that little bit of off-road Pan America feel. The Performance Machine race weight True Mids, I hate to love them. One, install was a pain in the nuts. They didn't give you much literature to go off of. They gave you a technical diagram, for so to say, with a couple photos of how it looks, but outside that, it's like, here's step one, here's a diagram of everything that's there, and then you're like, am I missing parts, what's going on? But the diagram is a blown up diagram of the true mid controls, unassembled, but they come relatively assembled. And then outside that, there wasn't much instructions on which goes where. There was a bolt for the rear brake assembly that you remove the OEM stuff and you put on the Performance Machine one, which is going to allow their brake lever to work with it in conjunction. It didn't come with an actual brake lever, so to speak, like a shifter. That I was not expecting that, and I was like, great, now I have to order one. Then Oscar came up with the idea of using our old shifter knob, because we were running the Elite Terrain Innovations one, and just put it on there, and sure enough, a bolt threaded on with it. So that's our brake lever. It's just the old shifter one. But the main gripe I have is when you put the controls on, you're trying to position the foot clevis. If you put a peg on it and you try to tighten that onto the foot control housing from Performance Machine, so where the bolt to mount the clevis for the Performance Machine, it comes from the inside, and then when you try to tighten the bolt for the foot peg, it comes from the outside. So if you tighten the right, it makes the left go loose, where I think they should have done the inside a left-hand thread, so that way it tightens as you tighten the foot peg itself, because that was the issue that we were coming in when we were mounting the MK1 foot pegs from TTI, that we liked the position of it, and then we tried to tighten it, and then it loosened, so we were battling that left and right. And I was reminded of that issue last night because I was swapping from the MK1 adapter where it lifts up your foot pegs, so that way if you're going to track, you have the clearance, you have the added clearance of that inch. And so we were removing that so that we could be a little bit more comfortable, and because the other thing is going to be that the brake lever sits far too low from my foot, where instead of my foot depressing it and at the, like where the brake gets actuated, it would be level. We were level, so when we depressed the brake, my foot was going down, and it made for a very awkward movement that didn't feel good, and I wasn't able to get a good purchase or a good rear brake that I thought was super sketch. And granted, for track, we very rarely ever use the rear brake because we're pretty much just doing the front. We were trail braking using the front, and we weren't really doing much city riding. That for stoplights like this, I would engine brake a lot, so that would reduce a lot of my speed, and then I would start braking from this point where we have plenty of room to stop. That I totally forgot what it was like to use a rear brake, that now that we are running the MK1 foot pegs only and no adapter, the brake lever feels much more of a firm purchase and more natural. But still, I wish that the brake lever would sit up a little bit higher, so that when I did depress it with my boot, it was more of a firm feel. And again, that might also be attributed to us needing to flush our rear brake system. We have yet to do that, and we are at 38,000 miles. I believe that's a 20,000 mile service that you do that. We've done the master cylinder on the bars tons of times because we're always swapping brake lines, we're always doing all kinds of stuff and swapping calipers. But the rear we have yet to do, and I feel like we should probably do it. That might be part of the issue there. But then touching base on the brake assembly once again, is Performance Machine provided you with a bolt and nut that you're supposed to feed into their new, let's say the brake bone actuator, whatever that thing is that holds, that the brake bone ties to. You got rid of the OEM one, use the Performance Machine, and you're supposed to tighten it. But when I did tighten it, not overly tight, just snug, it would not let me depress the brake where it would get stuck. I would depress it and it would stay down. I was like, well, shucks. And I would have to put my boot on the side in order to lift it. And then I was like, I'm not gonna be doing that all the time. So I left it just tight enough where it was still a little bit of play, and it was a lock nut where I thought, oh, that's gonna be more than enough. Nope, we went to Harley, which is like 7 miles away. And then I look and that sucker's gone. I was like, no. So right now we just have it with zip ties. It's super ghetto. Our bike is pretty much a dyno. We got zip ties holding a lot of stuff together, like our fairing, where the whole left side is just held on by zip ties. We keep on losing those rubber grommets for some reason. I never had any issues, and then we put everything back together and then everything's falling apart. Where it's interesting that it's funny because we have a dyno now. We have a dyno M8. And so that's the only issue that I have. That's like the main issues I have with the Performance Machine True Mids. That I kind of wish that they gave you either two options of brake bones, like a really long one and then a really short one. So that way if you're running foot pegs, you can just use their standard, or if you're running the higher ones, you can be additional, where it's not so much longer, it just has more of an aggressive turn to move the brake lever mounting point. Say it's where my thumb is, and to move it where it sits a little lower, that will give you a higher brake arm position. Outside those issues, I will rate them 7 out of 10 because for track they have been a godsend. That we had improved our position, our time, our speed, our body posture, that we had to start riding without our crash bar because it was close to dragging, that we were afraid that we were going to catch part of the track. It might cause an issue where it catches. If there's an imperfection on the track, and also we get caught and then we high side and like, oh snap. So that was very nice. They are expensive. They are $1,400. Gosh darn. That we pretty much just put that on a credit card and we paid it over time. But again, it was very worth it. It was the average price for most. Now, one cool thing is that we messaged Scorpion. We ordered some Scorpion exo pants and jacket for cold weather riding that we mentioned in the previous video. And it was super cool because they worked, but the only issue was that within the first time removing my liner and putting it back in, because we got it, we wanted to take it for a test ride to see how warm it was without the liner, and then so we removed it and put it back in, and it was within that same day that we noticed that part of the one of the tabs for the inner liner on the pants that hooks through a loop and secures and buttons that allows it to sit whenever you're moving around, stretching your legs, that prevents the liner from bunching up or coming out. I messaged him, I said, hey, this is pretty much this is a bummer, because I literally just got them. I screenshot and sent them my order. That's a big old groove, from the shop. And I said, I literally just got them. The first time removing and putting on the liners, that's already coming undone. I'm pretty disappointed. Just giving you all a heads up, and kind of just letting them know, like, hey, quality control just be a little bit better, or improve this section, whatever. Cool. Anyways, they messaged me a couple days later and said, hey, we're so sorry about this. Shoot us a message on shoot me an email, and I'll have our warranty department get the ball rolling on getting you a replacement. So I did that, and then we're waiting on a return label and I think a box to come in from Scorpion. And then shortly after that, we started engaging in dialogue, where they started asking about an old liner that I had. They started asking about an old liner that I had on a helmet, and I said, no, that helmet's already super old and there's no need to replace it. And they said, well, okay, what helmet are you running now? Long story short, they said they want to get us back onto Scorpion. I told them I was looking at a Scorpion XO-R1. Hi. Yeah. Because it's supposed to be like 70 degrees later tonight, so I was like, let me just... How cool? 70. So it's like summer for y'all. Yeah, I was gonna say. They said, hey, we're sorry that we're just now seeing this message, and we want to see, have you ever thought about going back to Scorpion? And I said, honestly, I was looking at the Scorpion XO-R1 when I was looking for a track only helmet, and that was one of the ones I was looking at, but the color option I wanted wasn't available. Talked, and he said, we'd love to offer you the opportunity just to try one, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do, cool. We just love to hear your thoughts on it. And I said, okay, that'd be dope. This is the size I wear, and I would be interested. I can do a review for y'all and also give y'all some product photos, etc., etc. So, but he said, I only have one in stock here in the office, and it's a wild color design. So I said, oh, hot dog, that's gonna be exciting. I'm excited. It's gonna match my personality. I'm curious to see what color wave it is. But we're gonna try the XO-R1. Now, why was I looking at the XO-R1 helmet from Scorpion? It was because for the cost, it was about $435, maybe $535. I can't recall specifically, but for that, you got like a tinted visor, you got like a drop-down shield, and then a clear visor as well, where it was pretty sweet of a deal for the price. That the AGV helmet came with, the AGV K6 helmet that we got came with a clear shield stock as the OEM equipment, and then we got the blue iridium shield, but it was the most expensive one. Like, why did the blue one have to look so dope? Probably because they knew people were going to buy that blue one. And the other shields, like the gold, the red, was I think $70 to replace it, which is standard for mirrored shields. And then the blue iridium was like $130. It was like, ooh, that's a whole helmet of itself. But it was super cool. We got it and we looked super fly at the track, and I was like, ooh, bud, we cooking. So I told them that. I said I was really looking at them, but they didn't have the color size that I wanted. And so they said, we'd love for you to have a review and compare it to the helmets that you've known, because for the last 3 to 4 years, we've run Bell helmets. We started off with the Bell Race Star that we got on sale. That was about a year old, that we ended up picking up, and we were introduced to the Bell lineup, to the Bell Star lineup. At that time, the Bell Race Stars had additional nuance, that had additional like upgrades that the Star did not have, like the Jade Mesh liner. And then that following year, the Star family started seeing the Jade Mesh liner, the antimicrobial, and then I think the Bell Pan, like the Bell Pro Tint visor comes standard. That it was, I think, $500 for the Star, and then $700 for the Race Star, and then Pro Star like $1,000. But it was super interesting, where I was just like, ooh, okay. And then after that, we ended up winning a bike night event at our local dealership for our Ron Burgundy setup. That we got a $100 gift card, and we were shopping around, seeing what we could spend it on, and we saw a Bell SRT helmet in the store that was at $220. I think it was on sale for $200 or $189. So we said, why not? We can get a new helmet for $100 out of our pocket using the $100 credit. Said, okay, cool. And for $200, the Belt SRT helmet is a bargain of a deal because it's extremely comfortable. It's $200.